Nicole, it's good to have you on here. I figure we talk about detox just because it's a topic a lot of people trying to get sober. I think it's our biggest hurdle,
Yeah.
when we first get clean, we're scared to go through that detox or, that experience.
Hold on. Hey, let me shut these notifications off so that way we don't get the meow. Hold on just a
Oh,
second.
you're good.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, good deal.
All right. But yeah, so I think that's a big hurdle that people don't, it's hard for people to get past is, knowing that they're going to have to go through a little, some pain, whether it be even going on to maintenance, it's an adjustment,
For
um,
sure. Yeah.
and, and I think, we're always medicating because, we don't want to deal with it. So I know for me, I had to have that, the timeout that, I don't know, I had to have a timeout before I really, you know, was ready to take that leap. I think if I was to go back out today, I would have to go to detox if I was to go back out, like I used to.
For sure. I don't feel like today, like now, the way my body is, like I don't bounce back like I used to when I was younger. Like even after I had Nathaniel and I went into detox for, I think I stayed in detox for 6 days. They kept me one extra day because I didn't have anywhere to go. And I was like, you got to let me stay one more day or else I'm going to go out and get high. So it was
Yeah.
a Sunday and they kept me and let me stay till Monday so I could go straight into the rehab. And but now, even back then, it was like so hard on my body. Like I just feel like I would get high and then it would take me so much time to like recover. You know what I'm saying? Like it would take me, whereas I remember when I was like in my 20s, I'd get high for like the weekend and then I'd be back on my A game on Monday. But as my addiction progressed, I'd get high and then it would take me like 3 or 4 or 5 days to get back to feeling normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I know for me, I never realized even when I would use meth, even though meth ain't something you associate with detox, I realized what it did to my body because it was almost like a detox when I had stints of even using meth. It was especially as I approached 30, I think it got harder on my body to where you know I would have to sleep a couple days and actually eat for a few days and stuff and to get my strength and my body back right, because
Hmm.
I guess we blow all the endorphins. We don't eat right and don't get the right nutrients when we're using like that. So, um, I think even people who's using stuff like that are almost scared to tackle that process. Because a lot of times we started using because we didn't want to deal with underlying issues. You know what I mean? So
I think that's what it is. I think it's just like a lack of not wanting to deal with reality. And I mean, when I think back to all the times that I was going through withdrawal, um, I hear people talk about that have had like really hardcore heroin addictions, and they always talk about how they don't want to be sick, they don't want to be sick. But here's the thing: the way it was for me was I was always sick because I was poor, and so I would get a whole bunch of pills and shoot them up, and then I would have be 3 days without any opiates, and so I was always in a constant state of withdrawal. I'd get high, then I'd be withdrawn. I'd get high, and then I'd be withdrawn. So I've never had like just so much dope that I didn't have to go that I negated going through withdrawal. I was always withdrawing. I
yeah,
was always having to go to work sick as fuck. I was always having to, like find a hustle to get more pills because I didn't have copious amounts of money or copious amounts of pills. And so I think what happens, this is how I feel about just like the world that we're in today and the kids that are the teenagers and stuff and the kids that are doing dope these days. It's like no amount, they don't want to experience any amount of discomfort, like nothing. They want to be able to smoothly transition into sobriety without any hurt. And part of recovery is going through that that transition, that it's like you're almost like, I'm not saying that you have to go through withdrawal to be in recovery, but what I'm saying is if you don't go through your physical withdrawal, you're going to be going through pain mentally, by like having to go to therapy and having to process through like the things that you weren't processing while you were getting high. So no matter what, you're going to have pain, whether it be physical withdrawal or internal emotional pain.
And I think that's the main thing is that I see that, if people go on maintenance and they don't have success, it seems like they don't actually have a program that they're working along with the medicine. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying it has to be a 12-step program, but you have to have some way to go through and learn how to start dealing with your life and dealing with whatever it was, the underlying issues, you know what I mean? That brought us to our addiction, and I think, that's one thing that's so important for people to realize is it's never just going to be fixed by a pill. You know what I mean? If you really want to have long-term success or real joy, I think you got to start dealing with them things of just trying to live a normal life,
Yeah, yeah. I I always like, okay, so like when I think about my underlying issue, because that's what I was thinking about all the relapses I've had and like what I could learn from my relapses and stuff. And then since you bring up like an underlying issue, like a lot of people are probably like, what are they talking about? Like what he means by that is like, maybe well, why were you medicating? And so when I think back to that time, why was I medicating myself with drugs? Okay. And so I remember being young. I remember wanting to fit in. I remember feeling like I wasn't quite like all the other girls. I remember like being very insecure and I wasn't even fat. I was not even, I looked great, but I was so insecure about the way I looked. And I had a great family upbringing, but for some reason, I always had this insecurity, this low self-worth, no self-love. And then I was diagnosed with depression and generalized anxiety disorder. Okay. And so that anxiety, you guys, when I would drive with my mom and dad, I was like 11 or 12 years old. I grew up in like a tiny little country town. I was so afraid that somebody was going to carjack us. We didn't live in LA. We lived in Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Yeah,
But
you're really back.
I had this anxiety that we were going to be carjacked. And I would think like that all the time. So by the time I got to be 17, I would think our house was going to get broken into. I had this like reoccurring dream of being kidnapped in this white van. And every time I would wake up, I kid you not, I would remember the license plate number. And every time that I would go with my parents somewhere, I would look at all the white vans I saw to see if the license plate number matched up to the one in my dream. I'm serious, y'all.
Yeah.
So when I got old enough to like start trying drugs out, I had all this like paranoia and scaredness coupled with insecurity and low self-worth. And so I started, using drugs, and I was like, this makes me not feel like that. I don't know why I had those irrational fears, but I just did. And I don't know where they came from. It was just this like paranoia,
And it's funny you say that because my brother, I know before he really got into drugs hardcore, our mother, we knew a little, as we got older, we realized she was an addict. But my brother, I remember, had, some mental health issues with like obsessive compulsive disorders. And, my dad was, he was a real country guy. So like he didn't understand that. Like, you know what I mean? He just stopped doing that is the way, it was his approach. And I think my brother's addiction really got, I think he got some relief when he got high. And so his insecurities I think played into it some, but I think he also self-medicated to where he was able to not have that nervous tick to where he felt that he had to act on his obsessive compulsive disorder. So and that's what I try to stress to people is like it don't matter what family you grow up in. It's just, you know, you got to be plugged into where you're able to talk about how you feel, I think.
Right.
And you got to have a safe outlet for it. That's why some people find church, and that, church and their faith is what works for them in helping them get clean. Other people it's NA, you know what I mean? And I think for a lot of people, we just get closed up for so long, not dealing with this stuff and just getting high, you know, we don't know how to start that process, I think.
Yeah, it's difficult, especially when you don't have when your family doesn't have any knowledge of addiction. Um, like my mom and dad had no idea like how to help me or my sister when we were getting, high. And so it took my mom like trying to get us to quit. And then she was like, man, forget y'all. I'm going to Al Anon. And she went to Al Anon and started like learning about how to like detach from me and my sister and how to hold us accountable without enabling us. And when my mom learned how to do that, it was all over, man. She kicked me out. And it was like, they never let me come back after that. And I remember my dad being like, we should let her come back. We should let her come back, Gina. And my mom's like, no, like she's not going to kill herself in our house. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Um, I want to ask you what you think about, okay, so I've been seeing comments and stuff all over YouTube because, I've been making my ways around these YouTube streets.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I see comments and stuff about finding a lot more people that are on maintenance medication, like a lot. Like I've found like Cindy Moore sent me like 5 new people that are on maintenance medication. So what do you think about, like, I almost feel like people think because we got on maintenance that like we're taking a shortcut to recovery. You know what I mean? Like we're somehow getting over and we were getting the easy way out. But the way I look at it is I feel like it's an extra step.
I think, I mean, I know it's like this. There's no easy way of getting clean, okay? Um, I had a couple years of abstinence when I relapsed. I remember, and I was one of them people who was very judgmental on Suboxone, and I realized I had just been white knuckling it, and I was being very judgmental to other people. Instead of working a program of helping people, I was being very selfish. But I think the stigma comes from people who's not working a program while on maintenance. I feel, but no, I don't think there's an easy way. I think it's an extra step. I mean, going to a doctor, having to be accountable, and actually still take drug tests. Them
Yeah.
things, there's no way to lie around a drug test. We know that, and I think you got to look at it from a lot broader spectrum, because people always think, I hear a lot of people who don't have medical knowledge are the ones saying that, Suboxone ain't really clean time, blah, 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 that have a lot of the judgment. But if you talk to doctors in real numbers, um, you know, maintenance is very successful,
Yeah.
So I don't think it's an easy way. I do think it gets a bad rap from people who aren't working a program with it because, like we were talking about, the underlying issues that started our addiction, unless you're working a program or finding some healthy outlets to replace all the negative, that's where you start having real success, I feel, you can't just
And
take a
being on
Suboxone.
Suboxone, that you can actually figure out, because I didn't, like I said, I didn't know why I was getting high until I actually was able to get on Suboxone, get stabilized, stay sober for a little bit, and then I literally had 3 psychological evaluations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the doctor wanted to make sure, like, because a lot of the things that I was exhibiting was like signs of bipolar, but a lot of it was because of the up and down methamphetamine and opiate, roller coaster that I was on. So
Yeah.
at first, from the outside looking in, I was bipolar as hell. But then as I stayed sober longer and I stayed on maintenance, I think the last time I had a psychological evaluation was a year and a half ago. And he was like, "You're not bipolar. This is what's, you have depression and you have anxiety, but that's it. You're not bipolar." But, and nothing against anybody that's bipolar, but I was exhibiting signs of bipolar disorder, but it was because of always being high and skeezed out in my addiction. It looked like I was having these manic highs and low lows, but it wasn't that. It was the opiates and the meth.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
and it does. I mean, I do believe I always suggest people see a counselor. Even if you don't think you have mental health issues, your first year in recovery, see a counselor. Because trust me, we as an addict, you have some type of you're not thinking completely clear. You know what I mean? Whether
Mhm.
and I believe there is a lot of dual diagnosis where people have depression they've never dealt with or anything like that, or don't even know they have, um, or they might be bipolar, different things. And I think a lot of that leads into where, never having them things treated sometimes lead people down that road.
Yeah.
And I just think the stigma, it don't help when you're saying, I hear so many people say they just want to save lives, but then they'll tell someone that taking a Suboxone is the same as dope. So
Oh,
I mean, I've seen this. I've
I
really,
hate that. Like,
and it's
that's
like,
fighting words.
yeah, I mean, you're like, really, you're just basically told someone look, if you're going to be on Suboxone, you might as well shoot dope. I mean,
Right.
you think about it, if you were doing everything right, you only had 30 days under your belt, but you were doing it all because you're on Suboxone and you're trying to work some type of program, and somebody says that to you, on a bad day, that could be the time you go out because what's it matter? These people I'm trying to lean on are telling me it's the same as dope. And I think that's the thing is, you got to let people be involved, to have that awakening. You know what I mean? And if they could take something like methadone or Suboxone and be able to live a normal life to where they actually start to have some success. Normally, that once you start being able to build a little something. I know for my first few years, I was so afraid of losing everything all the ground I had gained.
Mm-hmm.
That also kept me sober. So,
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
you
Yeah, I
know,
don't. I don't want to lose my family. I don't want to lose my son. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to lose my house. I don't want. I don't want to die. That's for sure. And I remember I used to want to die. And so to not feel like wanting to die anymore is a good feeling.
it's sad. You say that, and I got a friend. He came from a really good family. His dad was a judge. His brother was a cop. Anyways, he's not with us no more. I remember when me and him first got hooked. It's about 3 or 4 years into our addiction, but I remember me and him talking, and this is when I'm like 23 years old. We're talking, and we and him are both saying how we would get high, and we would get so high some nights, hoping we didn't wake up because we didn't want to wake up and start that all over again. Um, and the sad thing is he never got clean. He committed suicide, and
Oh,
yeah, and it just it's just crazy to me to think about people not realizing that if you could take a medicine and that help you live a normal life, to have any judgment on that is just insane. um
what I had to start realizing is that I remember when I started telling people that I was on Suboxone because I wanted to start sharing my story. My sponsor said I had a year sober and I could start sharing. And so I had seen all these people, and y'all have heard this story a million times, but I looked up to all these Facebook recovery advocates, and I was like I'm talking like Chandalin, I'm talking like these people with millions of followers, okay? Andrew Hager, and Andrew was one of my biggest supporters, but Rich Walters, these guys that are just like huge recovery all stars on Facebook. And they would tell their stories and they get all these followers. And I was like, I want to tell my story. That's so cool. I looked up to them. and I started sharing that I was on Suboxone, and it was like these people that I looked up to were like telling me that I wasn't sober. And that's when I realized, like, look whose opinions that I'm listening to.
Yeah.
I'm listening to a bunch of junkie drug addicts just like me. Just like if I told somebody you're not sober because you're on methadone, I would expect them to look at me the same way I looked at these fools. I
Yeah.
was like, why am I taking their opinion like it matters? Like
Yeah.
they're just the same as me.
Well, and that type of talk, man, is crazy because are they telling people not to take SSRIs? And you know what I mean? Like, you
I know a
that's
lot
a
of
dangerous
people
path for any program to go down.
for
Um,
sure.
and I know I have my opinion on methadone clinics, but I know there's people in methadone clinics, even back when I was abusing it, that were living normal lives, that were
Hmm.
able to have a normal, somewhat decent life going to a clinic. And,
Yeah.
you know, everybody's different on what's going to work for them. So like that's the crazy part of it is that people want to say, put this bubble in it. Oh, everybody could do it this one way. And you can't go that route because some people have mental health issues that others don't. Some people are going to have pain issues, whatever the issue may be. Um, so it's tricky ground, man, when you get into that. And that's the one thing is like, you know, whether you get on Suboxone or whether, you get on methadone, any of that, you still have to detox to some extent to even be able to switch over.
Yeah.
So, I don't think there's no easy way to it. And that's what kills me. And the thing that makes me the maddest about it is, you know, something that's supposed to be about support should never get twisted to where you're telling someone else if they're clean or not, like that. I mean, unless they're clearly abusing, if you can't just go and say, you're taking this medicine I don't agree with, and you're working a program I don't agree with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like telling someone not to take the Prozac. It's just not what you need to do.
Here where I live, there is literally, and I swear, there are sponsors that will tell their sponsees that they need to get off their psych meds, like SSRIs, antidepressants. And I remember I was working with this one girl, and we were sitting in a meeting, and she was like pointing this woman out to me. She was like, she was my sponsor. We were working together, and then she told me I needed to get off my. I think she was like on Depakote or something like that. And
Yeah,
she was like, I ran for the hills. If I don't have my Depakote, somebody's gonna die. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I'll go, I'll lose it. But there's people out there that truly think that you can't have any kind of connection to a higher power if you're on medication.
yeah. And what's I've heard that from some people, and it's just I think it's crazy. It's not
It's
a
like
healthy
I'm
way.
connected, baby. I'm as
Yeah.
connected as I'll ever be. This is the most
I'm a very
connection.
spiritual person myself. Church is a big part of my recovery, my everyday, just what works for me. And being involved in that just keeps me around better people. But yeah, I just think it's crazy because anything that is a support group should never be cutting anyone's path down or
Yeah.
giving you medical advice for that matter, especially advice that is proven, um there's actual studies, there's that's one thing I love about Dr. B, coming on our
Yeah.
channels and sharing like he does, because educating people to realize, hey, if this person's taking Suboxone every day, no matter how much you hear they're getting high from it or whatever, trust me, they're not. If they're taking their medicine correctly, they're not getting high. And the neat thing about last time I talked with Dr. B was he was explaining to me how if you're living a normal, healthy life on Suboxone or whatever, he didn't say Suboxone, he just, maintenance is what we said. So Suboxone or methadone. He
Hmm.
said, the neurotransmitters in your brain, everything in your brain that kind of dies off when you're using, because your brain quits producing the dopamine in that. He said, then pathways start to, reconnect because
Hmm.
you're living a normal, healthy life, if you were getting high, them pathways would not start reconnecting. You know what I mean? And he
Hmm.
said he can even show on a brain scan that this is, it's backed up with science. And
Yeah.
so that's the one thing that I'm so glad that there's a doctor trying to educate people on YouTube and let them know people like me and you aren't just saying we're sober and trying to make it sound good. We're living good lives, trying to help people, and I just feel like the message of a lot of 12-step groups gets lost in these people's personal opinions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
That's what it is.
yeah. And so what I guess one thing I want to ask you before I get off here, if you were to go back out today, would you go into a detox? If you had to detox to get back on the right path, what would you do?
Oh yeah. No questions asked. Every time, not every time, but
It's a lot more comfortable than jail. First of all, I would do it because I know
yeah.
I'd end up in jail.
I mean, going into detox ain't nothing but a thing, honey. I go in there, I eat snacks, I lay in the bed, I do my thing. It's not really that bad. And it's actually like keeps you have people there to monitor your vital signs. You have people there to give you medication. Like in some detoxes, like the one I went to, what they did was they gave me a Suboxone the first day I got there, one Suboxone. Then the second day, they gave me half a Suboxone. Then the third day, they gave me a quarter of Suboxone. Then the fourth day, they gave me nothing. Then the fifth day, they gave me nothing. And then on the sixth day, I left and went to rehab. Okay. I've been to that kind of treatment, to detox. Then I've been to other detoxes where they came in and they gave you Librium, which is like a lame, like Ativan or like a
Yeah,
benzo, but
it's like a
really,
very light benzo or
yeah,
something.
they give you that and like blood pressure pills, and they keep you hydrated and they monitor your vitals, and they help you stay comfortable that way. And then I've also been to places where it was like more of like a hospital setting, and they would even like give us IVs of liquid to
Keep you
um,
hydrated.
yeah, hydrate us. So it's on the way it was for me, like going into treatment and then going to detox and going to IOP. It was almost like taking a vacation for a couple of days off the
Yeah.
street, and relaxing and getting myself together. But if I was to relapse tomorrow, honestly, I would come running. I would come running back. If I relapsed, all I could think about was my son, and I would come running back. I would go straight into detox. I would go straight back to wherever I needed to go to get help, because it would have to be something real bad for me to go out and relapse, because that would be risking my son, and he's everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I asked you because I know it's hard to go to detox, and I know when I finally really found recovery and really plugged into it and gave it a chance was after I did my last bid. And I realized when I was in there, I finally broke down. I pled out to my charge just to get some type of drug treatment while I was locked up and, prepare myself to get out and try to be sober. Well, I realized, I wish I would have went to detox before I caught this felony because that is so what I needed. And I was just afraid to go through that. I didn't want to get out of my everyday natural habit and
Mhm.
step out and do something different. That's one thing I try to tell people because that's the only way is finding new things that you like to do and enjoy to do that are positive. That's how you have long-term success, at least for myself.
Well, if you're
Uh,
not willing to take action and go to detox or go to rehab or step foot into a meeting, then you're not going to get sober. Like, you have to take action. You can't just sit at your house, and it's just, you can't. You
if
may
you
you
stay in
may
your
be able.
comfort zone, you're going to stay in that comfort zone
Right.
because we get comfortable. And even though it's a horrible life, it's a miserable life, we still get comfortable in that. And,
Very true.
that's like, I remember my very first sponsor, he would tell me, if someone asked you to do something, in a meeting or in recovery, just do it, even if it was speaking in front of people. That's really not my cup of tea, but I got into it because it was something that I had to try I would try anything new because I knew doing what I had always done, I was never going to get better, you
Right.
know. So yeah, don't be afraid to try new things. That's one thing I would tell anybody, because it's just going to be that much harder on you, you know.
You got to be willing. You got to open yourself up and take suggestions. Be willing. You need to understand that you don't know shit and that you need to, what do they say? Take the cotton out of your ears and stick it in your mouth.
Yeah, 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 that's yeah, no, but I heard something similar to that, but it's like, you know, you got two eyes and two ears and one mouth because you need to be doing twice as much listening, twice as much watching, and half as much talking, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I
and that's
saw a
so
guy,
true.
he was on a comment section and he was talking about how um it was like he was like, I think that recovery should be private and people shouldn't be sharing their stories because I guess he's had so many bad experiences with people who share their stories, who get a couple, months or a couple of years clean and then they relapse. And I'm like, just because they relapse doesn't make their story and the help that they were giving others like not valid anymore. Everybody is susceptible to falling. Nobody's immune from a relapse. It could happen to anybody. It doesn't mean that person didn't want to stay sober. I think that is what a lot of people don't understand is that when I tried to get sober, I really wanted to be sober.
Well, and
You
it's not
know?
lost time. People feel like if they relapse and they got 3, 4 years under their belt, they feel like they lost all that time. They're ashamed to go back. And that's the complete opposite. Trust me, anyone who really cares about you, if they shame you for coming back after a relapse, they don't care. Like,
Right.
you know, trust me, they're not really who they said they were, because I know when I felt so weird when I went back after relapsing, and thank God I was only out for probably 3 weeks or so. And when I went back, everyone was just so glad that I came back right out so quick, you know.
Yeah.
And had I not, I probably wouldn't be here today. But I didn't lose nothing when I didn't lose that 2.5 years. I learned a lot from that 2 years, and that's one thing I'd tell anybody is you're not losing that time, you know. Now, if you keep going for 6 months or a year, you can get back as unhealthy as you were before you ever got clean. That's true, but you still definitely learned a lot through that time, you know.
Right. I
Eh,
think it's just all how we look at it. I think it's really important for a lot of us. We have a problem with like um, fear of failing. And so for me, I have to remember, like, if I relapsed or if I went back out, like I was saying, we got to learn from our relapse, like learn from that relapse. You know, all that 2 years I had sober or whatever, that's still like experience that I learned from, and now I'm going to take this bad experience and turn it into a positive by learning from it.
yeah, for sure. That's actually I had to talk today with trying to talk to my niece to make to try to make some plans to go into a sober living when she gets back on her feet.
Hmm.
And you know, I don't know how willing she is. It's a bad situation because you know what happened with my niece and her
Hmm.
getting injured really bad and stuff. So now she's had these back surgeries, and they just operated on her leg because it was broken. It's over 10 different places and stuff. Anyways, so she's in a nursing home at 20 years old, and she's having to be on pain medicine that's given to her. But it's just scary because, um, you know, she's on pain medicine every 4 hours. You know, she's on two per tens or something like that every 4 to 6 hours. And they know she's an addict. You know, I've talked to the doctor and stuff, and they're gonna try to eventually wean her before she leaves there. But it's just so scary, you know, because I don't know. I don't know how willing she is to actually make any big steps, you know. And
Yeah.
it's just one of them things you can't ever, even if it's someone you love and you're close to, you can't ever go rescue them because uh they got to do that for themselves, you know.
It's sad. It's hard to watch somebody that you love and care about. It's like you want to give them the willingness or you want to give them the power to take suggestions, but it's you just got to pray that she is going to take that because that's a really hard experience to live through, and hopefully she can take that and turn it around and say, I tried to do this and now I'm alive and I'm sober and I want to share how I stay sober. But the thing about it is, it's like the hospital, you know how we are when we're addicts. If I fell and broke my leg when I was still in an active addiction, shoot, I'd be weaning, I'd be getting my pills, I'd be
Oh yeah.
hustling everybody, you know?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's it's one of them things. It's she's in just a really bad spot where she's gonna have to have that awakening herself, and that's what I tell people is like, if anyone ever reaches out to me, I always hurry and try to help them if I can. If they're willing to go into detox or they're asking to find treatment, I try to help them, just hoping maybe that way, one day when my niece is ready and reaches out, maybe she don't reach out to me. She'll reach out to someone else. I just do that hoping that someone else will pay it forward because,
Yeah.
that's what we got to do, because even though they might not be my family, they're still someone else's niece. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the important way we got to look at it is, um, no matter where we're at in recovery, we need to lift the next person up if we're able to, if they're
Yep.
willing to take that step. It's not, not often people come to that point. So definitely, got to help them while they're willing.
I agree.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on. I will definitely be probably coming back on your channel or having you back on soon.
You can come on my channel anytime. I got all kinds of fun stuff planned. I'm telling you what, you've got to come over. I'm sure you've been doing it, but we are infiltrating the prison YouTubers and we are hitting up everybody who's in recovery in the prison community. And we're going to get them over here in the recovery community because I'm telling you right now, we got to strike while the iron's hot. These prison channels are blowing up.
I know, man. There's so many anymore nowadays, man. It's crazy. There's new ones every day. And then I tell you what's his name? Big Sid. I don't know. I don't know if he's a troll, what his whole deal is.
He's coming on my channel.
He is the funniest guy ever, man. He is off the hook, dude.
I'll tell you this, Big Sid's going to come on my channel, and then the other part of him might come on later after that. But he's sober. He's in recovery too. So I talked to him on Instagram.
No, I've seen who he really is, and wow, what a difference! Like when you see
a difference.
like he does, man. He needs to keep it up because he's
going to blow up.
He's good. He's going to be a big comedian one day. I believe it.
He's hilarious. I think he's the funniest thing. Every morning when I wake up, I go to his channel to see if he uploaded.
Well, and some of the stuff he does, I know he's lived a certain type of life because he's seen, you know what I mean? He's imitating what he's seen a lot of, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, great. So, shout out to Big Sid, Real Prison Talk. If y'all ain't seen it, you got to go see his channel. Yeah, he's a good guy, man. Making people laugh. And I think that's the one thing is I'm all for people sharing that they're, reformed from their life of crime or prison, sharing their prison stories. But I think we got to do it in a positive manner. You know what I mean? Like,
there's a couple of channels out there that still think it's cool to be like gangsters.
Yeah,
it's not.
Yeah, no, trust me. I don't. Yeah, no. Whether it's YouTube talking about gangsters, none of that's cool, and that's a shame of it. Is it's just not good for the youth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And glorifying any of that life, it's just not cool because it'll end you back up, where you don't want to be.
Jail or dead.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, thanks again, Nicole. I got to get my little munchkin to bed. My wife's still got to hit the grocery store. So thanks again for coming on. Hope everyone has a good night.
You too. I'll see you later.
See you later.